Good day, and welcome to Hiroshima University's English Podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Kay.
And Joe here.
And Joe, I have an important question about American culture. How do children learn about morals? 道徳. In America, are there morals classes in Japanese called 道徳の授業?
Good question, Kay. In elementary schools in the United States, are there lessons which specifically try to teach morals? I will say, Kay, the answer is no.
No lessons clearly dealing with moral education? Ooh. Then how do kids learn to be good people? Like how do children learn about important things like respecting older people or like fairness, like 公平さ? Helping people with disabilities, 障害者をどうやって助けるのかとか, thinking about other people called 思いやり in Japanese, and maybe cooperating with each other.I
didn't say there's no moral education. I said in public schools, which covers about 90% of American students, there are no specific lessons called moral education.
Ooh.
Americans generally think these types of values should be taught at home, by parents, or in religious classes outside of school.
I see.
A lot of Americans think that if you teach moral ideas at school, they will be very conservative ideas.
保守的という意味です。
Or nationalistic ideas.
国家主義のという意味ですね。
Also, a lot of Americans are afraid that if you teach morals classes at school, you will create robotic students, like robots, and students who never question authority.
大きな権力などに対して疑問を持たない生徒たちが生まれてしまうから、モラルの授業はしないんですね。
That's right. Americans often think it's good when students criticize bad ideas, criticize bad company leaders, even criticize bad teachers, because criticism at any level often leads to improving the system.
I see.
And actually,All schools in America do teach morals. A lot of the private schools, which tend to be based on religion and includes about 10% of schools, have morals classes. And the public schools teach morals indirectly.
Teach morals indirectly. Like, for example?
Of course, there are school rules regarding behavior. And,When individual students do bad things, the teachers and parents work together to try to solve the problems as individuals. And one of the best examples of teaching morals indirectly involves the Aesop's Fables, which children learn in school.
Aesop's Fables, that's the theme of our drama podcast this month and next month.
Yes.Aesop's Fables are famous short stories from a couple of thousand years ago.
Wow.
And people in a lot of countries around the world, including Japan, like them because they teach important things about life in interesting ways.
Yes. This month and next month at Hiroshima University's English podcast, we will tell you about 4 very popular Aesop's Fables.We
think these podcasts are pretty good because we'll try to make them interesting and also because on the audio we will explain about all of the difficult words. So our listeners do not need to see the scripts so much.
Sounds like fun. Natural way to learn English. So Joe, exactly who was Aesop?Who
was Aesop? Not much is known about the person because he did not write anything. But it's thought that he was a Greek slave and an oral storyteller who lived in about the year 600 BC.
Whoa. A Greek slave, in Japanese slave is dore, and an oral storyteller. That means he spoke everything and did not write anything down.
Right. He did not write anything down, so researchers do not even know if he was one real person. But he probably lived about 2,600 years ago.
That's near the end of the Jomon period in Japan.
And Aesop probably lived right before the famous Greek philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato.
Everyone, the three famous Greek philosophers, can you say the English pronunciations?
Socrates,
Aristotle,
and Plato.
and Plato.
Some researchers believe that Aesop began as a slave, but he was so good at telling stories that he was freed.
Oh, I hope he was freed.
Yes. But again, nobody knows the exact details of his life, or even if he was just one person. The collection of stories known as Aesop's Fables was written down during several hundred years after he died, and the stories had influences not only from inside Europe, but also from outside Europe.
In other words, a lot of people probably helped make the stories.
Right.
So enough with history. Let's get to our two stories today.
Yes. Today we'll tell you 2 of Aesop's fables, and next month we'll tell you 2 more.
Let's do it.
The first story is probably the most famous of all the stories. It's called The Hare and the Tortoise.
うさぎと亀。
Yes, it's a story about using your brain to beat a stronger opponent.
Yes, the moral of the story, この話の教訓 is about using your brain to beat a strong opponent.
Another moral of the story is don't be overconfident.
自分のことを過信してはいけない。Don't be overconfident.
The story is about a hare.
That's basically the same as a rabbit. Note the pronunciation is exactly the same as 髪の毛, hair, only the spelling is different.
And a tortoise.
That's a big turtle.
One day, the hare was making fun of the tortoise.
からかっていた。いじめていました。
Yes, the hare was making fun of the tortoise because the tortoise was so slow.
Oh.
The hare had a mocking laugh.
嘲笑っていました。
A mocking laugh. Like this. Ha ha ha.
Is that mocking?
Ha ha ha, said the hare. Anyway, the tortoise answered that he could move quickly, and he said, I'll run you a race and prove it.
That's the same as I'll race you and show you.
The hare was much amused.
That means the hare laughed and thought the race would be fun because the hare thought he would win.
And a fox consented to be the judge.
狐は審判になることを同意した。
A fox consented to be the judge. The fox marked the distance
That means he made the course.
and started the runners off.
So the fox told the hare and the tortoise go.
The hare was soon far out of sight,
That means the hare ran way ahead.
and the hare wanted to make the tortoise feel ridiculous.
馬鹿げた気分にさせたかったんですね。
So the hare lay down and took a nap.
お昼寝 Wow, he was very overconfident.
Yes. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept going slowly but steadily.
着実に進んでいきました。While the hare was napping.
And the tortoise passed the sleeping hare and approached the goal. Suddenly, the hare woke up and ran his swiftest, very quickly.
おー、頑張れ、tortoise.
But the hare could not overtake the tortoise in time.
追い越せませんでした。
So the tortoise won.
Yep!
And the moral of the story is, the race is not always to the swift.
競争はいつも速いもののためとは限らない。And with that, let's listen to
The Hare and the Tortoise.
The Hare and the Tortoise. A hare was making fun of a tortoise one day for being so slow. "Do you ever get anywhere?" he asked with a mocking laugh. "Yes," replied the tortoise. "And I get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and prove it." The hare was much amused at this idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of the thing, he agreed. So the fox, who had consented to act as judge, marked the distance and started the runners off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel very deeply how ridiculous it was for him to try a race with a hare, he lay down beside the course to take a nap until the tortoise should catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and after a time, passed the place where the hare was sleeping. But the hare slept on very peacefully, and when at last he did wake up, the tortoise was near the goal. The hare now ran his swiftest, but he could not overtake the tortoise in time. The race is not always to the swiftest.
Well, everyone, how was it? Kay, do you usually try to do things quickly, or do you do things slowly and steadily?
Well, I am a person who is sekkachi, so I'm tended to do things really fast. Yeah.
Right. So you shouldn't hurry so much, right? Okay. Our next Aesop's fable is also super famous. It's called
The Shepherd Boy and the Wolf. 嘘をつく子供.
Yes. In English, actually, it has two titles. The other famous title is The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
To cry sometimes means to shout or to yell.
叫ぶ.
Kay, do you sometimes tell lies?
I try not to. How about you, Joe? Do you sometimes tell lies?
I think no, never.
No, it's a lie. It's a lie.
Because when I was little, my mom said that if you lie, things always get worse.
Right. 嘘をつくと状況は一層悪くなるってことですね。Joe, I have an interesting question. Do you think Americans lie more often than Japanese? Or do Japanese lie more often than Americans?
Who tells lies more often? I think that most people in both countries are almost always honest. Average people almost never tell lies in both countries. But if you force me to choose one, who tells more lies? I will say Japanese.
What? Japanese tell more lies than Americans? Really?
I think so, because in Japan you have the expression uso wa hoben.
In English, that's telling white lies.
Right. You're trying not to hurt the other person. In Japan, it's very important not to embarrass the other person and not to make the other person feel bad.
Do Americans often tell white lies?
They do sometimes, but not as often as Japanese, I think. In the United States, it's important to tell the truth because then problems get solved. So generally, in America, I think people avoid telling white lies.
I see. So let's get to the story, The Shepherd Boy and the Wolf.
The Aesop's fable begins with a shepherd boy tending his sheep.
羊飼い was taking care of his sheep, tending his sheep.
But life in the pasture was dull.
Life in the 牧草地, the field, the pasture, was boring.
To amuse himself,
To have fun,
the only thing was to talk to the dog and to play on his master's pipe.
主人のフルートのような楽器を吹く.
But talking to the dog and playing on his master's pipe was kind of boring.
Yeah, that would get boring after a while.
Then, one day, he was thinking about what he would do should he see a wolf.
That's the same as if he saw a wolf.
And he suddenly got an idea to amuse himself. His master had told him to call for help should a wolf attack the flock.
If a wolf attacked the group of sheep, the flock.
Then the villagers would drive it away.
追い払う Get rid of the wolf.
But to amuse himself, he shouted at the top of his voice
Very loudly.
that a wolf was attacking the flock. The villagers dropped their work
They stopped doing whatever they were doing.
and ran to the pasture. But there was no wolf. The only thing they found was the boy doubled up with laughter.
That means he was laughing a lot.
You can also say he was doubled over with laughter.
Yes, doubled up or doubled over with laughter, they're the same. The shepherd boy was laughing a lot.
He was laughing about the trick he had played on them.
みんな騙された He had played a trick on them.
Then he did the same thing to them a few days later.
Oh, he was not a good shepherd boy.
Then, one evening, as the shadows were creeping out over the pasture,
To creep out means 入れる as the shadows, 影 were creeping out over the pasture.
a wolf suddenly sprung from the underbrush.
To spring means to jump out, and underbush is like yabu, bushes.
A real wolf did spring from the underbrush and did fall upon the sheep.
The wolf jumped on the sheep.
The boy shouted in terror,
He was really afraid.
but nobody believed him.
Nobody came.
And the wolf killed a lot of sheep and slipped away into the forest.
It escaped into the forest.
That's what he gets for lying.
当たり前です And with that, let's listen to the shepherd boy and the wolf.
The Shepherd Boy and the Wolf. A shepherd boy tended his master's sheep near a dark forest not far from the village. Soon he found life in the pasture very dull. All he could do to amuse himself was to talk to his dog or play on his shepherd's pipe. One day, as he sat watching the sheep and the quiet forest and thinking what he would do should he see a wolf, he thought of a plan to amuse himself. His master had told him to call for help should a wolf attack the flock, and the villagers would drive it away. So now, though he had not seen anything that even looked like a wolf, he ran toward the village shouting at the top of his voice, "Wolf! Wolf!" As he expected, the villagers who heard the cry dropped their work and ran in great excitement to the pasture. But when they got there, they found the boy doubled up with laughter at the trick he had played on them. A few days later, the shepherd boy again shouted, "Wolf! Wolf!" Again, the villagers ran to help him, only to be laughed at again. Then, one evening, as the sun was setting behind the forest and the shadows were creeping out over the pasture, a wolf really did spring from the underbrush and fall upon the sheep. In terror, the boy ran toward the village shouting, "Wolf! Wolf!" But though the villagers heard the cry, they did not run to help him as they had before. "He cannot fool us again," they said. The wolf killed a great many of the boy's sheep and then slipped away into the forest. Liars are not believed even when they speak the truth.
Well, I will never lie again.
Me either, Kay.
Everyone, today we talked a little about the history of Aesop's fables.
Yes. For more than 2,000 years, Aesop's fables have influenced dramas, songs, sculptures,
彫刻です。
sculptures, and paintings around the world.
Including Japan?
Yes. Next month, let's look a little more at how Aesop's fables have affected the world, including Japan.
Sounds good.
Everyone, come back next month for part 2 of Hiroshima University's English podcast's version of
Aesop's Fables.